Hi there, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thanks so much for joining us. We're here to talk about from Pivotal to VMware Tanzu, what you need to know about the journey that we are all going on together. And we've got a couple of excellent speakers today. No doubt you're going to have a bunch of questions as we go, so I'd like to ask you to use the Q&A pane here in the webinar window to log your questions throughout the course of the session. We're going to do our best to respond to those throughout the session, and of course we'll leave a little bit of time at the end to address questions that you have. Again, we've got some great leaders here to guide our discussion today. Our speakers are Ian Andrews, who led marketing and product at Pivotal and is VP of Marketing for Modern Apps here at VMware, and Craig McLukie, who leads product for the Modern Apps group at VMware, formerly CEO and co-founder of Heptio and one of the co-creators of Kubernetes. So Ian and Craig, thanks so much for joining us. And with that, I'm going to dive right in and hand things over to Ian.
Thanks, Scott. Super excited to be here. We've been planning this webinar for quite a few months, and now that we're finally through the acquisition, we wanted to take this opportunity to update all of our existing customers and people that have been following along on the Pivotal journey on what they have to look forward to over the coming year. So during today's session, we're going to review the acquisition, and then probably even more importantly, we're going to share some core R&D principles that Craig and Paul Fazzone and Ray O'Farrell, the leadership team in the new business unit at VMware, have agreed to, and I think are going to be really important to our customers. We're going to talk about some product-specific commitments, deliveries that you can expect from us in the coming quarters, and then give a bit of a longer-range view on what you can expect over the coming years from the new organization here at VMware. We're going to share some information today that is currently under development. So obviously, while we will do our best to deliver on what we've promised, keep in mind that things can change. I also want to share that, obviously Pivotal has a very broad portfolio of products and services. Today, we're really going to focus on just Pivotal Application Service, Pivotal Container Service, and BOSH. There's obviously a number of other products that are key to the portfolio, and we actually intend to do follow-on sessions to discuss many or all of those products and their respective roadmaps. But please don't take anything that you don't hear talked about today as any indication of its relative future importance in the portfolio. We really wanted to hit on the products we've been getting the most questions about and really share, I think, some exciting updates on where those are going. So with that, let's quickly review how we got here. Many of you that have been following the Pivotal story for some time recall that we actually spun out of VMware back in 2013. I joined what became the Pivotal team a little bit before that spin out, and I have to say that returning to VMware today, it's a vastly different place than what we found in 2013. If you haven't been following closely along the VMware successes over the last 7 years, they've been dramatic and a significant expansion of both the ambition and the portfolio of the company, where they've really locked in on this strategy of being able to support the most important applications in your portfolio across any cloud, any type of application, any device, and really extending that from what was traditionally virtual machines in the data center to now supporting, obviously, containers, but bringing that out of the data center to the edge, to various hybrid cloud architectures, and probably most interestingly, also supporting all the popular public cloud platforms. And when I think about what we were able to build at Pivotal, the coming together now makes so much more sense, right? Pivotal's vision from the launch was to help our customers through this modernization. We saw public cloud playing a huge role in that, and now Pivotal and VMware are very much aligned on how we see the future. Now, it's been a pretty exciting journey for those of you that have followed us over the last 7-8 years since we spun out of EMC and VMware, grew the company significantly to over 3,000 people, over 600 customers, 135 partners, massive ecosystem. We're lucky enough to be able to take Pivotal public, and I really look at the acquisition that closed at the end of the year as not the end of Pivotal, but the beginning of a much bigger and more exciting chapter for all the ambitions that we had at that company. We can now achieve those with VMware. And so as I think about, the things that we were able to do successfully at Pivotal, many of you listening today on the line are customers. You've adopted Pivotal Application Service or other products in the portfolio and successfully transformed your businesses, right? Increased developer productivity, improved operational efficiency, dramatically better security, migrated to a world of multi-cloud operations. And I want to take those results and bring them to the next 1,000 and then 10,000 customers. And really, that's the opportunity that we now have at VMware. Craig, maybe you want to comment on some of the VMware perspective here in the acquisition.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. I've been part of VMware for a little over a year, and what made me most excited about the potential acquisition of Pivotal and ultimately the acquisition of Pivotal was our ability to construct a product portfolio that caters directly to developers. And when I think about the future of enterprises, large and small, it's increasingly important that they're able to use developers to solve business problems in novel and accelerated ways. And until the acquisition of Pivotal, our portfolio in terms of what capabilities we had that were catering directly to those developers, what capabilities we had that were directly supporting the acceleration and digital transformation of enterprises was somewhat constrained. We had a great infrastructure portfolio, but we really didn't have those tools and capabilities that could cater to development teams and make their day-to-day lives better. And as I think more broadly about the Kubernetes ecosystem, that's also been true. Kubernetes has emerged as a very powerful and capable infrastructure technology, but the average experience for individuals when encountering that platform has been weak. Now, by bringing together Pivotal and VMware, we have an opportunity to unlock tremendous value, not just for the existing Pivotal customers, but really bringing that capability out to the broader world. Let me sort of advance slides here, and I'll spend a little bit of time talking about where we are today, and then thinking through, where this is taking us in the future. And there's a couple of key things. I think organizations that have been looking at the acquisition of Pivotal by VMware have been asking some questions and would like answers. So let's take a few moments to talk through some of our key commitments to the product portfolio and make sure that folks understand where we're going over the coming months and years as we develop the future of PaaS together. Now, the starting point is unequivocally making sure that organizations understand that Pivotal application services on VMs is a continued area of investment for VMware. When we look at the experiences that our customers have with the Pivotal portfolio, we're committed to making sure that we continue their experiences, that we are continuing to invest in the vision of a holistic system that supports modern application development practices. So I just wanted to hit that right from the get-go. We will be continuing to invest in the PaaS product line. Pivotal application service on Kubernetes is emerging as a top priority. When you step back a little bit and look at the future, PaaS has constructed some really excellent outcomes for organizations, and some of the world's biggest companies have effectively bet the farm on this as a technology that will be a mainstay of their portfolio. But we're also seeing organizations start to look at Kubernetes as this Goldilocks abstraction that enables them to look at a variety of different infrastructure environments in a very consistent way. We're seeing a tremendous amount of energy in the Kubernetes ecosystem, but we're also seeing a lot of challenges in the Kubernetes ecosystem. And so when we look to the future, we see bringing the PaaS capabilities to Kubernetes as a top priority for the organization. We want to make sure that that highway experience of going from a development environment into a production context is not just preserved, but is accelerated for a broader array of workloads and is applicable to the Kubernetes system. And for our customers that are looking at the future and trying to ask the question, what does this mean to me? I also want to make the assurance that the entitlement is secured for all of our existing PaaS customers so that when they're looking at the consumption of a PaaS experience on Kubernetes, there's a very clear path forwards, not just in terms of the technical experience, but also in terms of the set of entitlements that they've already purchased, that they're able to make that transition at the time and point that makes sense to them. Another really important capability when we look at PaaS is not just looking at the Linux environment that Kubernetes has started to create a set of very powerful experiences around, but also being able to construct a holistic experience for all workloads. And Windows has been a mainstay of our PaaS story for some time. And I'd like to reassure the existing Pivotal customers and future customers of VMware that we will continue to invest in and support Windows development, not just on PaaS, but also in the Kubernetes context. We've been very central to a lot of the activities of making Kubernetes work well in the Windows environment in partnership with the broader ecosystem. And that investment will continue and in fact accelerate over the coming months. The other point that I'd like to make is that when I look at the utility of PaaS and the Pivotal portfolio, BOSH shows up as a critical part of the story. It offers an automated system for lifecycle management, not just of the application, but of all the constituent pieces that include the operating system components. We will continue to develop and deliver on that vision. We will make sure that the BOSH experience is preserved, that the vision holds true, and that we're able to extend that out to a broader array of workloads and unlock value for our customers in new and unique ways. So when I look at stepping back a little bit and looking at the portfolio, there's a set of organizing principles that I tend to think as we're shaping and managing our investments into the coming quarter, half year, et cetera. And the starting point for us is really this prescriptive guidance, first do no harm. We always want to make sure that our customers have a very clear path forwards, not just in terms of what their future looks like, but being able to look at the set of technologies that they're using today, have a clear path forwards in terms of investments that are going to be made in those technologies that they're running their business on today, and have access to and experience continued innovation, continued investments that are going to improve and enrich the set of technologies that they've invested in. Another thing that I think you'll start to experience as we look to the future is this idea that modularity is going to be an important part of our story. We like the idea of creating clean, consistent, vertically integrated solutions, but increasingly as we look at the world of real-world enterprises, there's a lot of challenges associated with creating and consuming closed systems. So one of the things that you'll start to encounter with the Tanzu portfolio is embracing this idea of modularity. And that's really grounded in a pragmatism that when we look at enterprises, they're complex. There's a lot of systems that they've invested in that they want to preserve. There's a lot of capabilities that represent years and years of investment and would be very difficult to unlock and change. So our strategy is really grounded in this vision of modularity, enabling organizations to preserve some of the capabilities and then snap them into this new Tanzu portfolio in a way that makes sense to them. And the other piece that I think is really important to us, and this is something that I've obviously worked on personally for many years, is the importance of an engaged and open source ecosystem. Maintaining our commitment to the open source technologies that we are stewards of, and making sure that as our customers look to the future and as open source is increasingly an important part of their technical decision-making process, that we maintain a very high level of commitment to open source, that we're good stewards of open source communities, that we're not just looking at what is best for our business, but ultimately we believe that we thrive if the ecosystem thrives. We thrive if there's a healthy multi-vendor community that's building and supporting around the technologies that are emerging from open source initiatives. And you'll see increased commitment to open source as part of our go-forward strategy. So with that, I'd like to hand back to Ian to talk through some of the portfolio components.
Thanks, Craig. I would say to summarize there, everything that people know and love from the Pivotal portfolio continues forward, but it seems like things are going to get quite a lot better over the coming year. So we've got a lot of exciting stuff coming. I think it's easy to forget too that in the midst of all the acquisition all the focus that's been on Pivotal joining VMware, people may have forgotten, we've got over 1,000 engineers that are continuing to build new features into these products, and we've got a number of releases coming up in Q1 and Q2. So I wanted to take a moment and just share some highlights here so that folks know what's coming in the near term. So firstly, with Pivotal Application Service, we've got the 2.9 release will land here in Q1, continuing on our 90-day release cadence. And there's a number of key features that I know customers have been looking for here. Improved security, improved metrics, monitoring, a number of stability capabilities to really continue to improve on the robustness of that platform. And as we've done consistently over the last few years, increase the types of application workloads that can run on the platform. And then, of course, we'll have Application Service 2.10 should ship in Q2 as we continue on that 90-day cadence. Now, while we're working on that product, we also have this new topology or new configuration of Application Service that runs natively on Kubernetes. We first started talking about this middle of last year, and this was really about allowing application developers to deploy using that CF push experience. So simplistically, here's my code, turn it into a runnable container for me, deploy it to the container runtime, connect the networking, logging, metrics, monitoring, auto-scaling, all automatically. Just make my life as simple as possible. That feature set we brought out as an alpha middle of last summer. We've been continuing to crank away at delivering more and more robust pieces of that experience. But we also made an important decision in the last few months, which was to really make this experience complete. We wanted to containerize the control plane so that it actually then has the ability to run as an application on Kubernetes and effectively eliminate the need for a discrete cluster of virtual machines off to the side. So this brings ultimately, significantly reduced operational complexity. Potentially, it's smaller footprint, easier to adopt at a team level. So we're pretty excited about this capability. We're anticipating a refreshed beta in the Q1 timeframe, and then general availability in the latter part of Q2, with subsequent releases in Q3 and Q4 that bring additional capabilities to this architecture, ultimately bringing it to parity with the application service on VM topology by the end of the year. And so there'll obviously be more information shared about this as we progress through those development milestones, but it's a significant initiative for us for sure. And I would be remiss not to mention Pivotal Container Service. This is our Kubernetes product that we've had in market now for a few years. We are actually in the process of shipping the 1.7 release here in Q1. Number of key features here, I think really led by Windows container support. This has been obviously something that's emerged in the open source Kubernetes development cycle. We're pulling that in as a generally available feature into the 1.7 release of PKS, something that I know has been a top request from a number of customers. At the same time as we brought in that new feature, we've been continuing to improve the upgrade and configuration experience, better automation around backup and recovery, and an improvement in the entire monitoring and metrics architecture around the system. And we anticipate the 1.8 release dropping in the Q2 timeframe and then subsequent releases throughout the year. Now, we're also working on a number of things in the Spring ecosystem. If you haven't been following along with Spring, it's been a busy year for us already. In Q1, we're actually anticipating Spring Boot 2.3, which has a number of innovations. If you're building Spring to run in containers and run on Kubernetes, I would encourage you to look at some of the milestone releases that have already gone out around Spring Boot 2.3, particularly layered jars and automatic Docker file generation is something really exciting that I think significant simplification of the developer lifecycle. We also have recently released Spring Cloud Gateway 1.0, which I think is a huge advancement forward in API gateway technology, really allowing you to drive your gateway as if you would any other application. So configuration stored in source, continuous delivery of updates or reconfiguration of that gateway, and of course it's built on top of the entire reactive stack that we've implemented over the last few years into the Spring architecture. And then of course Spring Framework 5.3 we're anticipating coming out in Q2. So a lot of exciting developments coming in the Spring universe. And then finally, Pivotal Labs. So this obviously our application development and modernization practice. This is something that was a cornerstone of our business at Pivotal. Obviously helped hundreds of companies over the years build new applications or tackle that ever-present modernization challenge in their existing portfolio, or really rethink how they were running the platform supporting all these applications. I can't emphasize enough how important this is to the go-forward strategy at VMware. Pivotal Labs, we're anticipating this growing significantly over the coming years as our customers expect more and more from us in the application development and modernization space. So the team here is incredibly excited to be part of VMware and have this expanded customer and partner reach where they can really bring the practices and techniques honed at Pivotal Labs to a much wider universe of customers. So with that, Craig, maybe I can pass it back to you. I think you're going to tackle one or two elephants in the room.
Yeah, I think there's two elephants in the room, and I'd like to just take a few minutes to talk through how we're thinking about the evolution of our portfolio, making sure that we can map the investments that we've made historically to the investments that we're making in the future, and answer some of the burning questions that our customers undoubtedly have. So let's start with the one key question. When you look back on the past, we've been investing in Kubernetes for some time collectively. Enterprise PKS was a joint project between Pivotal and VMware, a collaboration to make Kubernetes itself accessible to enterprises on top of the BOSH platform effectively. And as we look to the future, we want to, first of all, re-up our commitment. Enterprise PKS is a proven technology and is the fastest path to production for Kubernetes. And one of the things that I think is very important for organizations to understand is that I've spent many years in the Kubernetes ecosystem. I've been there since day one. And one of the things that Enterprise PKS really got right was the idea that Kubernetes needs to be delivered as something that can be consumed in smaller pieces. The way that enterprises, real-world enterprises, consume Kubernetes is not one monolithic cluster over time. It's actually a number of smaller clusters. And Enterprise PKS was the first to market with a really robust enterprise-grade capability that delivered this. And we will and have to preserve that capability for our customers. Now, when you look to the future, one of the things that VMware is very excited about is bringing Kubernetes in a very natural way to vSphere, really embedding a capability to operationalize Kubernetes in vSphere. And that's where Tanzu Kubernetes Grid fits into the picture. We're producing a rendition of vSphere, an upcoming release, that will include the Tanzu Kubernetes Grid embedded directly into it. Now, what does that mean to our customers? When you're looking at this world, there's this one stream of investment we've made to make enterprise-grade Kubernetes accessible everywhere, and there's this other emerging stream, which is making Kubernetes a very natural part of the vSphere product portfolio. And what I wanted to say is we will converge these streams in a non-disruptive way. Obviously, for organizations, as Kubernetes just starts to light up as a natural part of the vSphere sort of core offering, it'll become a lot easier to operate. A lot of the folks that have historically been focused on the operation of virtual machine-based capabilities will now have this new, very powerful tool in their portfolio called Kubernetes, and it will be a natural part of their day-to-day work. At the same time, we do see the need to provide a consistent experience in a lot of other environments, in the places that PKS has historically gone, not just on vSphere, but also into the public cloud, and increasingly into a variety of other sort of more exotic deployment topologies. And so our commitment is to preserve the BOSH vision and capabilities, giving that holistic, complete capability to turn up a Kubernetes cluster, upgrade the Kubernetes cluster in place, maintain not just the Kubernetes binaries, but also the underlying operating systems, but really bring it together in a holistic platform. So our enterprise PKS customers will be fully entitled to the Tanzu Kubernetes Grid offering. So this new rendition of Kubernetes that's being integrated naturally into vSphere. And we'll work very closely with customers over the coming months and years to make sure that there's a clean, well-documented, non-disruptive path to move from the set of technologies that they've already invested in to the new technologies, if it makes sense to them. The other enterprise in the room, and I mentioned this earlier on, I think this is one of the most exciting initiatives that I'm personally involved in, is the ability to take that PaaS for virtual machine-based experience that we've constructed and bring it into the Kubernetes ecosystem. So one of the things that obviously we need to do is first create that superhighway experience from code to production for Kubernetes. We will continue to invest in the existing code base. So PaaS on VMs is not going away anytime soon. We will continue to provide updates and maintain that code base and make sure that our customers are supported. But as we progress and start to go from the alpha state that our PaaS experience on Kubernetes is today towards a general availability that we're targeting by end of year, we'll really be looking to bring these worlds together. The intent is to make sure that the core capabilities are available on both platforms, and also that as we move from where we are today to where we want to be by the end of the year, we quickly unlock a lot of value for our Kubernetes developers. When I think about the set of experiences that mainstream enterprises have when building their next generation applications on Kubernetes, there's a lot of gaps in that portfolio. And I think that bringing that CF push experience to Kubernetes is going to close a lot of the gaps, unlock a lot of value, and ultimately accelerate the success of the Kubernetes programs that our enterprise customers are standing up right now. So with that, I'd like to hand it back to Ian, who's going to talk a little bit about how it all fits together and what the portfolio view looks like.
Thanks, Craig. I think this is maybe an architecture or a diagram that is going to be familiar to many of you out there, which is this idea that we've always believed in delivering from the hypervisor layer all the way to the application framework, and bringing with us the services expertise, really the human expertise necessary to help our customers as they either build new applications or modernize. And so within the portfolio, we've brought Pivotal Application Service, Pivotal Container Service, in the process of bringing Pivotal Build Service to market, and really envision that platform as being the best way to run your modern Java applications built in Spring, and do that across any cloud, wherever you happen to need to run your architecture. I think VMware, they've also had a similar, expansion of the portfolio over the last few years, as they expanded from vSphere to VMware Cloud Foundation, VMC, ultimately bringing the VMware infrastructure stack into the public cloud universe, and building on top of that in partnership with Pivotal to develop PKS, and then more recently bringing the Tanzu Mission Control, Wavefront, Tanzu Application Catalog together. And so the thing I'm most excited about is when we combine these two pictures, we have now really a complete set of solutions for our customers to address the entirety of the challenge around both running modern applications, managing the platforms that support those applications, and in fact, actually building the applications themselves. And I really, as I look across the industry landscape, there's not another company out there that can provide this complete a portfolio and bring that to wherever you as a customer may need to run, whether that's in your data center, in the public cloud, or in between at the edge. And so put another way, I think, we've got the most flexible portfolio of products and services, whether you're thinking about this modernization challenge as something that you're going to start at the infrastructure layer and build upward, or you're coming at this from an application development perspective with a priority to actually start at the code level. The team here at VMware, working in the Modern Apps Business Unit supporting Tanzu, is really the best partner that you could ask for. So let's talk a little bit about where we go from here. The mission that we've all come together around, and that's the team from Heptio, the team from Pivotal, the team from Bitnami, and the team from VMware. We really believe that we are now able to connect the IT teams, the line of business teams within each of your organizations, and help catalyze that enterprise transformation through better software. And ultimately, I think this enables your businesses to compete more effectively and over the long term, achieve your goals of growth and success in each of your organizations. That layer of software has become more and more important, and we have the ability to help you figure this out. Now, we've got a number of things coming on the roadmap. I mentioned build service a moment ago. We're working hard to bring that to general availability here in the near future. Function service is a project that we've been working on for a number of years, both in the open source efforts around Kubernetes and Knative, as well as within the Spring ecosystem via projects like RIF. We expect to make significant progress on that project this year. A lot of work going on in the vSphere team around Project Pacific, and then there's a lot happening at VMware today in the networking team around service mesh that will be back in the near future. Craig and I and some of our other product and engineering expertise to share significantly more detail on all these topics. Before we go, I would like to invite all of you to join us on March 10th. We have an exciting launch event planned. We'll have the exec team from across the company, including Pat Gelsinger, Raghu, Ray O'Farrell, Joe Beta. We'll be talking about release of a number of new products. I think it will be valuable for all of you to attend. It'll be a 30-minute virtual event broadcast live around the world. So with that, I'm going to wrap up, and we'll open it up for Q&A.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Craig. Really appreciate it. Reminder, everyone, now is a great time to log your questions in that Q&A pane, and we will do our best to respond to as many of those as possible. I have picked out a couple of questions that the group has asked over the course of the session so far for Ian and Craig to tackle for everyone here. Ian, question that I think is best suited to you. How should we expect to hear about updates to the roadmap and the portfolio on a go-forward basis? I gather Pivotal was probably pretty transparent about sharing this with its audience. Should they expect any changes going forward, Ian, or what's the best way for people to stay in touch?
Well, first I would say transparency, absolutely yes. That principle will continue, and sessions like this one, I think you can expect to become a relatively regular occurrence. And then obviously we have a number of events throughout the year where we can get together in person and we'll be sharing more product details there as well.
Great, thanks. Craig, you talked about open source as one of the principles behind the portfolio, and both Pivotal and VMware come to the table with significant investments in open source. How will the combined teams prioritize where they invest their time and energy across a number of open source projects?
Well, I think in aggregate, you can see that, our investment in open source communities and open source projects is only going to increase. As Ian mentioned, we have a pretty significant development team. So you can expect to see a significant sort of increase in the incremental investment. But the real answer there is really going to be grounded in what our customers need. One of the things I really like about Pivotal is this relentless focus on understanding, where our customers are, understanding what our customers need, and then, working within the parameters of their open source community to address those needs. So the short answer there is we will invest in the technologies that we see our customers needing. We'll keep an eye to the future. There's a lot of exciting new capabilities that are emerging in open source communities that are adjacent to Kubernetes. You can expect to see us, putting a lot of resources into those. But everything will be grounded in really helping our customers on this digital transformative journey, and making the investments in open source that they need us to make to be good stewards of those communities.
Cool, great. And there's a couple of questions here, I think, Ian and Craig, will give you a chance to reinforce points that you made over the course of the session. There's a question here on what is Tanzu? Is it one thing or many things? And Ian, you walked us through the portfolio picture, so it might be a good chance for you to reinforce that Tanzu is not one thing but many things. Can you address that?
Yeah, absolutely. Tanzu is really a portfolio of both products and services, because keep in mind Pivotal Labs is here as well, that brings together what we think is really necessary to solve the challenge at hand. Every organization I talk to today is asking questions about, what's the most effective way to build, manage, and run modern applications, and how do I get my current portfolio into that state, and that's what we're attempting to provide with Tanzu. So absolutely, complete portfolio.
Great. And Craig, final chance to poke one of those elephants in the eye. Will I be able to operate my PaaS on VMs / Cloud Foundry without VMware technology, or will there be a dependency on VMware technologies that's introduced?
You will be able to operate that solution off VMware technologies, now and into the foreseeable future.
Good, great, thanks. Hey, there's more questions coming in, but what we're going to do is wrap now. We'll do our best to pick off those questions in the Q&A pane. I want to thank Ian and Craig for spending some time walking us through the current state of the portfolio and the direction that we're headed here together today. And I will reinforce Ian's suggestion that you all attend the March 10th launch event. That's another great opportunity to see what VMware has been working on over the past years, and for us to share the most complete picture of the Tanzu portfolio. So we'll see you again on March 10th. We thank you very much for joining us today, and appreciate your time, Ian and Craig. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Scott.
Bye for now.